We're talking about too many white things right now. Let's get back to.
Oh, it's Friday with Jarod. We're opening with the off-camera talk about golf. I'm gonna puke in my mouth a little bit. What's happening? Welcome everybody. This is our little Zoom show from home. It's called Bring It In. On Fridays we do this 9x90 thing, but first let's just take a minute. Giannis Antetokounmpo is about to be officially named per Woj MVP. Any thoughts?
No surprise. I mean,
well deserved.
Yeah.
One of the top scorers in the league, best defensive player in the league. Yeah, it sounds like MVP. Team had the best record in the regular season. We could. I'd love to see some different awards being named, allowed to, like best offensive player, like we have best defensive player. But yeah, if we're gonna do an MVP, he deserves it.
I'll also say it's only happened a few times, but it's always awkward when the person getting the MVP award is no longer in the playoffs. It's just kind of. I mean, it's a regular season award. I get that. It just looks kind of like, oh, you've been home.
To me, it's a team sport. His team wasn't good enough in the postseason, but in the regular season they were, and that's why he won.
We are all just like narrative-wise, we are finishing like a week of just the most criticism of his game ever. Yeah. This is a little like, and he's the best player in the league. It's like, is he? Do you really believe that today? Like in a poll today, Jimmy Butler would rank ahead of him, right? Like, as with LeBron and Anthony Davis, right?
He's also a lock Hall of Famer, right? How many two-time MVPs are not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Oh, he's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we do our thing. Let's do our thing. Judy's got the clock ready. Rock and roll.
All right, Judy, play the video.
Fundamental commitment is to the dignity of ordinary people and to make sure they can live lives of decency. So it's not an ism, no, brother. It's about decency. It's about fairness. It's about the accountability of the powerful vis-a-vis those who have less power. At the workplace, women dealing with the household, gays, lesbians, trans, black people, indigenous peoples, immigrants. How do we ensure that they are treated decently and that the powerful don't in any way manipulate, subjugate, and exploit them?
Well, I mean, if that's what democratic socialism is, then I'm basically on board. I do think that ordinary people, middle-class people, ought to have dignity, and I think that our current systems make it hard for them to have dignity. So I agree with all of that.
Fundamental commitment is to the dignity of ordinary people and to make sure they can live lives of
that is the Harvard and Princeton scholar, Dr. Cornel West, talking to the ridiculous human being that is Tucker Carlson. You know, that's exactly what democratic socialism is, right? It's about decency and treating people fairly, not all these other things. And if that is Tucker Carlson's road to Damascus moment, thank the good Lord. I highly doubt it because, you know, that's not his brand. I also love the fact that he was like, if that's what this is, I'm basically on board. Well, what's the basically part? What's the part that doesn't make sense to you? I don't know.
And it's not hard to know actually what it was in the first place. You should have looked it up. Okay, so I think it was The Ringer posted something about Duncan Robinson, who finished third this year, I think, in threes made. Duncan Robinson.
That's Rob Mahoney.
His famous Duncan played Division III, then went to Michigan. And meanwhile, it's a celebration of Duncan Robinson, who was fantastic yesterday and very, very pivotal for the Heat to hang on and beat Boston. And the Heat are falling all over themselves for congratulating themselves for having this guy and developing him. Meanwhile, in the quote, they're a friend of mine, Chet Kammerer, their top scout for many years, says, I've been with the Heat now for 24 years. I have never seen a guy shoot the ball like that for that length of time from every different way. And he was describing a workout where he's shooting threes, running all over the place. He calls it not your typical like country club workout. But they didn't draft him. They didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't have a second-round pick. They didn't trade to get either to get him, nor do they offer him any kind of guaranteed job. At minimum, they gave him a two-way deal, which he would not have taken if anyone else decided to pay this man, who is a brilliant and tall three-point shooter. What the fuck is going on, people? We're giving an MVP to a guy that can't make a three very much, and we know how to defend him. And these amazing tall shooters we're hoping to get on a two-way deal, even after they prove they're great shooters. Come on now. There are guys like that could be on teams right now. Sign them and win games.
Coach is hot. Take away Giannis' MVP.
I like it when David gets that tone going.
Whoa. That was...
Don't worry, it won't last.
It's not. The truth is, he doesn't actually care about anyone else but himself. He made a statement once that was very striking. I never forgot it because it pretty much defined who he was. When we were in a task force meeting, the president said, maybe this COVID thing is a good thing. I don't like shaking hands with people. I don't have to shake hands with these disgusting people. Those disgusting people are the same people that he claims to care about. These are the people still going to his rallies today who have complete faith in who he is. If the
So that's Olivia Troy, who was Vice President Mike Pence's staffer assigned to the White House COVID task force. And she's made this little video, has made some noise today. But to Jarod's first entry there with the Tucker Carlson appearance, like, but so decency is the message, right? I don't think you have to believe in anything to believe in that, right? You don't have to join the club. You can just say, hey, what we want is for people to have dignity and decency, right? So this is exactly the point. This is exactly the attack, right? Is anyone who says maybe the pandemic is a good thing because it'll keep me from having to shake the hands of who? Those disgusting people. Like, that's it. Like, this is we want decency and dignity for everybody. Like, who's the problem in that?
All right, so we're in the throes of the playoffs here, and the playoffs, as Coach knows, as Henry knows, we all know, it's a stress test, right? Like, it puts stress on whatever's going on, and as your team is a system. If there are cracks, it's going to stress those cracks. We saw Boston go down 0-2 last night. Malika Andrews and Gary Washburn both reported there were blow-ups in the Celtics locker room, which is not really a big deal in and of itself. Like, guys are emotional, get fired up after losses, and Marcus Smart comes out and says, y'all on that bullshit, right? Okay. Which is, of course, hilarious when he said that. And then Eric Spoelstra was asked later about how they're able to win and all this, and he says, look, people want to talk about our scheme, but it's really about our disposition. Isaiah Thomas, Hall of Famer, said many, many years ago, the secret of basketball is it's not actually about basketball, right? And in essence, what he was saying is, yes, X's and O's, we get all that talent, but there's a spirit that Coach Thorpe always talks about, and a belief and a feeling, and these things that make a team connected and feel together. And right now, that is what the Miami Heat are looking like. That's not to say Boston isn't. It's just saying this is what Miami has and what the Denver Nuggets have right now in spades. They just believe, and they're connected and together as a group. And when you have those things, and of course you have talent, that makes the playoff stresses more manageable and able to be dealt with, right? They go down double digits, they're able to fight their way back one possession at a time, and it's beautiful to watch.
So last night, I actually stayed up after the NBA game and watched the Lightning win an overtime game to win the Eastern Conference part of the NHL. Yes, we're talking hockey. I couldn't name probably more than 5 or 6 players, and only because I've been watching a little bit in this postseason when the NBA games are over. In the last 4 years, the Tampa Bay Lightning have the most wins in the NHL. They sell out pretty much every game. Their TV ratings are great. Last year, they had the best record in the league. Twice they've scored over 100 points in terms of what they've earned, which is amazing. And last year, with the best record, they didn't just lose first round. They got swept. So they had the number 1 seed. They got swept by the last seed, Columbus. And they did nothing but add talent, find some other veterans. They kept their coach intact. And now they finished second this year in the seeding that they did. And they're going to the Stanley Cup for the second time in the last 5 years. Doc Rivers is absolutely being hammered right now. And I do think there should be criticism to him and the franchise. Of course there should. You're allowed to look at things. But to make any kind of wild moves is a mistake. The Clippers are built under Doc to continue to at least contend for a Western Conference final and beyond. They've got to get better, but thinking that you're just going to change the coach and magically get better is a mistake. To me, the Lightning are proof of that. You've got something that's working very well. I think the pandemic hurt them a lot. Give them time. I think they'll be fine next year, if not great.
The show's like 5 minutes old, and we already have golf, Trump, and hockey.
And Pence.
Appealing to all demographics.
All right, so check this out. This is Jimmy Butler gets 3 steals in the final 4 minutes of game 2. I'm going to give you some little Like, this is, to me, so much more impressive than scoring 3 buckets. And here's why. Buckets occur in about 50% of possessions. Turnovers, any kind of turnovers, are only on 14% of plays. And turnovers are the best possible ending of a possession because that means there's no foul, there's no bucket, or even a shot attempt by the other team, right? Live ball turnovers, which is what a steal is, result in a vastly higher likelihood that your team scores. Like, your team's offense is much better after live ball turnover, as we're seeing in this video, right? Like, that ball gets free, and then next thing you know, Jimmy Butler's alone at the bucket, or Bam is, or the fact that he got 3 of this, so that for the Heat, a steal happens on 8% of plays, which is high. And that he got 3 of them. You'd expect 0 or 1 steals in the last 4 minutes of this game, but 3 of them, 3 of the best possible endings, is a kind of genius that is way out. It way outclasses, outvalues making 3 buckets, which is something you see in more highlight reels. I yield my 8 seconds.
I like it. I like it.
You know, it's going to be a Heat love fest for a little while here, and I want to talk about the Miami Heat culture. You know, Bam Adebayo said after Game 2, Coach came up to me in the third quarter and was like, "I need all defensive team, Bam." And from there, I had to start it on defense, and then my offense started flowing. So I give all credit to Spo. And, you know, everything about this Heat team, as I said in the previous possession, is really just all about that feeling where each guy is committed to winning. And Spoelstra said that after the games. Like, I'm not going to break down to you guys about winning, but we know how hard it is in this league. Each guy is competitive, and they know what it takes to bring to be necessary. You watched the games yesterday, and I'll watch the X's and O's at some point, and then I'll watch like the body language and chemistry. Even when they are messing up and things are going bad, each person who may have made their direct mistake is owning it directly. Yo, my bad. But his teammates aren't yelling at him. They're like, I got you. We'll get it next time. It's all these little tiny things that matter in the bigger game. Because, again, down 16 or whatever 14 they were down, they're not nervous. They go, all right, we get a stop here, we come back, we're good. And it's 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And the next thing you know, they're up 8. It's really incredible to watch them do that and to see someone like Jimmy Butler be the catalyst around all of that and literally do whatever is necessary to win. Henry showed those plays. You want me to lock a guy up in 3 minutes? I'll do that. You want me to go jump out of bounds and get I don't care. I will do whatever. And it's guys saying they'll give up their body in the bubble is their mantra, and that's beautiful to watch.
So jumping on the Heat bandwagon, the Heat played a lot of zone this year. I think they might have led the league in number of possessions they played zone. They did not really show it at all in their first 2 series that they went 8-1 on. And they played it a lot yesterday. And initially, I thought Boston kind of found some holes in it, and then they didn't. And they really struggled all game with what the Celtics threw at them, and they're just a basic 2-3 zone. And he does a little bit different. Normally in college and high school and middle school, you put your smallest guys in the front, smaller guys, and then your bigger guy in the back of the zone. He inverts that a little bit. He tends to play his bigger forwards up. They cover more room. They cause more live ball turnovers, as Henry just talked about. That's a strategy thing. And this is what we call 3-dimensional chess here, is you're not just making a move and then seeing how he reacts. No, I don't play chess for a living, and I was never really very good. But you're making moves now that you know will pay dividends, you hope, later. And so this is what he's doing, and this is what we're seeing this more and more with coaches. I speculate this in the article I wrote today regarding the Nuggets and the Lakers, that you may just throw something out there because it'll mess up the rhythm later on. You also get a glimpse to see how they're attacking it. So I think Brad Stevens will diagnose what they did wrong. And I definitely saw it. I tweeted about it last night. But I also know Spoelstra will have a remedy for that coming. Like, this is the matchup that we'll see. And I love coaches getting more active that way.
So you guys, the Western Conference Finals starts tonight. And can you believe that? I spent the morning with David on the phone, a lot of it, working out some stuff in this story, which is published. And one of the things I learned, which is in the story and from the phone call, was like, you know, the Lakers lead the league in a whole bunch of stuff: offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, dunks, and protecting the rim. nugget, he's not particularly good at interior defense, and he's especially not good at stopping not his man, right? So there's this stuff, David, you can talk about it more. I'm going to talk about it during these 90 seconds, and then you can explain what actually you meant. Yeah. But this was interesting to me where, there's going to be Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Anthony Davis constantly looking to pummel the ball at the rim. And Jokic is like focused on his man and subpar, below average at paying attention. David used the term muscling up, getting in the way of cutters. And so this is, I think, one of many factors, but a key factor why David's picking the Lakers in 4 or 5, which after reading the story, I'm like, yep, that sounds about right. I'm also, I'm a Blazers fan, so.
I mean, if Murray goes crazy from 3.
There you go.
If Murray goes crazy from 3, Jokic is shooting so well from 3. Of course, there's variables at play. 3-point shooting is very important, but the Lakers are coming at you. They are coming to the rim, and Denver isn't very good at that.
It's their particular weakness, right? Everybody's good in the paint against Denver, which is
right. Yeah, the Clippers and the Clippers and the Jazz did it, and that's just kind of part of what they do. No, this is what the Lakers do: beat your ass at the rim. And I know Mike Malone and the team knows it's coming, right? But I said to Henry on the phone that I don't know that matters. They'll shore up as best they can, but you don't suddenly magically become elite at defending the rim, and that's what you need to be able to do. Like there's no one on the Nuggets. Jeremy Grant's a very athletic guy, one of my favorite players, but there's no Bam Adebayo blocking Jason Tatum at the rim on a dunk attempt for Denver, at least not more than once anyway. It's going to be a problem. But I don't want to talk Lakers. I really am excited that Jarod talked about heat culture, and Henry talked about their turnovers. Henry knows this well. I tell a story, Jarod, that Harvey Penick, the famous golf instructor, Henry knows this story because I've talked to him so many times, where he was training a student, one of his pupils, a great college player, who made it to the finals of the Texas Amateur Open back in the 30s, when basically only like 5 states even played golf because of weather or whatever. And he's like, how are you going to do in the finals of this match play? And he said, I'm going to kill him. My opponent has a bad grip and a bad swing. And Harvey Penick tells the story of kind of smirking. The next day, the kid comes in forlorn, beleaguered, and Coach Penick's like, how'd it go? And he's like, I got killed. And he said, you learned a lesson. This is the finals of the Texas Amateur Open. This young man made the finals. If he made the finals with a bad grip and a bad swing, the boy can play. Respect that. So that's what I think with Miami. They get by Boston. They are not as talented as the Lakers, who I assume is going to win the West. You never know. But they have figured out a way to win, and they are to be respected and admired. And that culture and Spoelstra's strategy and the way they buy in, and Udonis has them, which we'll talk about later, that cannot be ignored and discounted.
I'm with you 100% there, Coach. And the quote that's really stuck out to me, and I wanted to dive in a little deeper, was Spoelstra saying, people want to talk about our scheme, but it's about our disposition, right? In essence, like what I'm understanding there, your X's and O's of course matter, right? Like I'm doing this, you have to counter and figure out what. But isn't it so much the way I execute my scheme, right? The disposition in which I do it. They're playing zone. And it's not just, okay, it's zone. It's zone with people having all their arms and tentacles out in passing lanes, disrupting, so you're not able to get and attack the zone as much as you should because you are not approaching the zone with your offense with the same disposition. Like, it just, the spirit and attitude with which you play is so important. And again, watching that Heat team play, like, you're like, all right, Boston's flexing, Tatum's on fire up. They're going to get, you're starting to feel like, ooh, this might be too much for them. But the Heat never blink. They're like, okay, we're fine. Just one stop. And it's like, they realize that if we just keep doing things how we do things, in essence, if we just play harder, we'll be fine. And it's really, I'm impressed to no end watching it.
There's like a marriage of like, creativity and blue collar work in this sport, right? And to me, the Heat have always been like, no, it's just blue collar work, right? And sometimes, some years that looks really smart, right? When wait, so Damascus Cousins, to your point, Jarod, about like just basically how many seconds are you working, right, when you're on the court? And somebody did an analysis years ago. I don't know if this was public or private, but I think it's public. But basically that Damascus Cousins is complaining about the refs. Just that thing cost his team 6 or 7 points a game, if I remember correctly. So, if you can just have everybody on the court not do that, most games are decided by 3 points, right? Like, so to me, like the Heat are always going to be that team, right? The upside of it is what we're seeing right now with this roster. This is how you get more out of them. The downside is like, this is how they lost LeBron, right? LeBron wanted a different vision. He wanted flexibility and creativity and like stuff and they were like, no, we do it our goddamn way, right? And he's out, right? There's more to it than that, but to me, they're all like, they're beautifully stubborn, right? Like this is a militaristic team. And, that's like, these are soldiers marching up a hill in a rainstorm, right? Perfect for marching, if that's what you need to do. Not perfect for like innovating the next great thing. Like they've been terrible with European players, for instance.
Right.
Like, Carlson flat out said he didn't want them, right?
Right. That is true. I was, you bring up a really funny thing, Henry. I think you guys know, I know Henry knows John Gavoni well, but John was like my little brother when he first started doing this kind of stuff. His very first ever in-person scouting was in my gym with watching a couple of my players. And the very next summer, we're in Orlando Summer League. This is to your exact point, Henry. And he sees Pat Riley in the bleachers at Orlando Summer League. There's no fans of these things in Orlando. There's just personnel and media and players. And Pat's behind the bench, and I think Stan McGunny might have been coaching the game, or Spo might have been coaching, whatever. But he's back there with their GM and with Andy Ellsberg, whatever, and Ellsberg. And John says, "Ooh," he literally jumps up from sitting next to me. "I got to go talk to Mr. Riley." I'm like, "No," and he's gone. And at this point, John was dressed like a bum. He was a college kid at University of Florida. He goes there and he goes, and I don't know what he's saying, but I'm watching. I can see Riley reacting. And it's not going well. That's all I can tell you. It's not going well. So John comes back, still kind of chipper. I'm like, how'd it go? He said, not well. I said, what happened? He said, I told him, you've got to be looking at Šarūnas Jasikevičius, who ended up, the Pacers signed him later on. You've got to look at him. Yeah, he can pass. He just won a European title for Maccabi Tel Aviv. And after he got done speaking, Pat Riley said to John, "Hey kid, who the fuck are you?" And that kind of ended the conversation, which is the part I saw. So your point is very, very good. But regarding the zone, this is what's key. So you're right, Henry, about calling him stubborn. But Spoelstra was still in charge of his team. And so there is some innovation there. And here's what that innovation is. This is how most coaches are. They'll try out a zone. The other team gets a 3 or a bucket. Oh, fuck it. We're out of it. Let's go back to our conventional D. Well, the Celtics initially, and I even tweeted that finally Boston's running a man to the middle, which kind of converges the zone. Then you've got all sorts of options, including quick plays to the rim. Tace, how do you say his name? The Celtic center.
Tace,
yeah. So
I think they say Tice on TV.
I think they do, but I think it's Tace. So he sets an interior screen for Kemba. Kemba uses it, draws the strong side forward, gives a pass we call the short corner. I think Jaylen Brown gets a wide open layup. Like, it could not have been any easier. And I thought, oh, finally they've realized screen the interior of the zone, get into the middle, make easy plays. And I thought Spo would be out of it because that's how most coaches are. No. He makes sure they guarded a little bit better. They converged a little bit in the short corner. And so those live ball turnovers Henry's talking about, some of them came because of lazy passes and their own guy guarding them deflected it. Because what happens is you get worried about what's happening down there, and you forget about the guy guarding you here, right? You can't always focus on both. But the other things that happen is they made Boston do things they don't practice very much. Literally just simple cuts in the lane. They were fumbling the ball. Boston had 20 turnovers. Miami had 9. That's the game, guys. 11 more possessions represents 33 potential points that they could score. And some of them against air because there were live ball turnovers. And it was basic passing, catching stuff. And these are NBA players. But that's why why do we play defense? To make you do stuff you haven't practiced a lot. That's the goal. Make you do something you're not already great at or grooved in. And more coaches should have more cojones, as one of the ESPN guys would say, more courage, right? More courage. I don't want to say cojones, more courage to fail a little bit. It's okay to fail a little bit. Let's tweak it up and give it a chance and not be so worried about messing up for a few times. Big damn deal.
There's a thing, actually, David made another interesting point about the Nuggets, which was, they could run a pick and roll. Jokic could get a little guard on him, and he could take him down in the post and do a lot of damage there. But they haven't been that team, right? Like was he 24% usage?
Yeah, Jokic was 26% usage and Murray 24% in the regular season. I didn't look up in the postseason.
So if they're going to pummel teams like this, now Jokic is 35% usage guy, right, which is not how the team plays. So maybe you give up some buckets and let them struggle, see if they can make this work, right? But they're probably not going to just suddenly become a team that's really good at that whole difference.
Right, that's not how Nikola normally plays. If you start doubling him, now you're doing what the Clippers did. I tell you one thing, here's another innovation I've seen. In fact, I've been telling coaches about this since yesterday. You've seen this when you're watching games, the late clock double teams. Mm-hmm. So Boston, they doubled Tatum more than they did anyone else, but normally not until the end of the clock. And it's something they should be doing for years. I've never understood why you don't press more early. There's a way to double team early and leave everyone else back protecting your basket, so you're not giving up too much, but you're making them run some clock, and then press again late when you can't just make 3, 4, 5 quick passes. The clock runs out. I think this is going to start coming. Otherwise, offenses, if all 5 players can shoot the 3, I tweeted yesterday, what if Adebayo could shoot the 3? He's like a more athletic Jokic then. Because he's a gifted, he's got skills around the rim, guys. I don't mean just dunking. He's got a little touch. He's got a little jumper. He's a brilliant passer. He can handle it like Jokic can, and he looks smoother doing it than Jokic. What if he can shoot a 3 too? Well, what if every team has those kinds of guys? And there's a lot of talent out there. Well, now you got to start being more innovative defensively. And you got to trap early. You got to trap late where the clock is to your advantage. You trap in the middle of the clock, you're screwed because there's enough time to make 3 swings and you're going to get a wide open shot. But this is where the game is evolving to, I think, which is going to be more exciting.
I just thought of a weird, the max salary has a lot of weird effects because some players are worth more than the max salary, so it makes it weird. Right. One of them is Bam can't make more money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if he could up his salary by adding the 3, he would spend this summer adding the 3.
He's already a max.
He can't make any more money. Like, he's already worth more than he could be paid. Like,
that's a great point. Yeah, you can't be max plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be a max plus, but they are. And so one last thing, Jarod, have you, I've never asked you this. So Jarod, you've been a sports fan for a long time and covered the NBA, but
can we take this to golf, please? Let's go golf.
And have you always appreciated Udonis Haslem?
Oh, 100%. Haslem, I mean, even back at his Gator days, right? When he was in Florida. And Coach, because I say this all the time, I literally hate those phrases that lazy people in our industry use. The glue guy, locker room. I can't stand using those words because it's like they burn my mouth as they come out. But I understand what they mean. I get it. I mean, talk about leadership and all the little things that he's able to do that we don't know. I don't know how to quantify that in numbers. I don't know what that means in terms of how much X% it helps you win. But I do know I want that dude on my side. That I do know. Everything else, I'll figure it out from there.
You know how Steve Nash just got this job because he's a Hall of Fame player, and I get it. And I personally think he helped Durant said he did, so I believe him. If you want a guy that's ready to go right from player to coach, that's the guy. I have no idea if he wants to do that. I've not asked him. He manages businesses. He owns restaurants. He's an incredible success story. I know where he came from in Miami. But ready for this? His high school coach was Frank Martin, who is at South Carolina in the SEC and went to the Final Four a couple years ago and is starting to create some NBA players now from a school that Alex English is one of the few guys they ever had. That's who his high school coach was. And by the way, his team was incredible. Then he played for Billy Donovan. Pretty good coach right there. Then he played for Stan Van Gundy. Pretty freaking great coach. and then Pat Riley, and then Spoelstra. I mean, you want to talk about a coaching tree? That is the coaching tree. There's never been a player who had a better one than that. And let's want to go back to the Red Auerbach days, right? And Bill Russell. And he is as authentic as you could possibly imagine. He talks exactly how he feels. That's why he can walk the line of not hating policemen when he admitted, I've got family that are policemen, but he's very real in terms of what he represents. He is also brilliant about basketball. One of the two smartest players I've ever coached. I don't know if he wants to do it, but watch these games. He's coaching. And so I put a little thing up, Judy. You don't have to put it up there because I can say it. But he was talking about this business trip. He's like, I don't want to be
Can I read this, David?
What?
Like, okay. When you see how I approach every day, and when you see how we approach every day in the bubble, ain't really here trying to be friends with nobody. I might have spoken to about 5 people outside of my teammates since I've been here. I didn't leave my room until my wife got here. That was about a week and a half ago. I ain't slept in the bed. I'm sleeping on the couch. Jimmy sleeps on his couch too. What? That ain't nothing planned. That's just how it happens. I don't want to get too comfortable. I don't want to feel like home. I don't want to get relaxed. I want to keep my edge. I want to stay focused on the task at hand. So I'm sleeping on the couch right now, dog, with a room full of chunky soup.
That's the greatest quote ever. A room full of chunky soup.
It's awesome. I want to ask both of you this because the three of us, we operate from the standpoint of there's more than one way to skin a cat, in that there's different leadership styles, right? The Michael Jordan style, the LeBron style, there are all the different kinds of ways to do it. And some of them work, some of them don't. It's all relative. How do you guys feel about the way, like the Heat style and Jimmy Butler and that marriage there, right? Like it's so perfect in that, and Eric Spoelstra said this, if Jimmy stops practice to cuss somebody out, I'm good with it. Like, and everybody else is good with it. Like no one is like, oh, I don't know, this guy's kind of whatever. Meanwhile, right, in Minnesota, it's like, we don't, like, that doesn't work for whatever reason, right? In Chicago, it didn't work. Like, in Philly, Ben's feelings were hurt. Like, what is this sort of, like, balance between being able to get your point across in a manner that everyone can receive it, but also realizing, look, because I think what Miami is doing is holding everybody accountable, right? Like, that's their thing. It's accountability. That's, at the end of the day, everyone has a job, and if we all do our job, we'll be fine. But if we don't, we're not, and we all have the freedom to call each other out on not doing your job and vice versa. That to me is fascinating, really fascinating.
So I want to praise David for a second. Like, we've been talking about this question. This is an amazing question, Jarod, like for 150 years. And there are no easy answers. But I will say that the thing that most those ding, ding, ding in my head is like, David will say that, like, it's not about can you get the most out of this player or that player. How many different kinds of players? Because we don't know what the mentality and psyche is going to be of the 7-footer that you get in next year's draft, right? If you happen to get someone who doesn't respond well to that, then it sucks that that's all you got, right? Like Michael Jordan knew how to motivate Michael Jordan, but he did not know how to motivate Kwame Brown. You ruined him, right? Like, so anyway, David, you can explain more, but this to me is like, how much variety do you have in your game?
Right. The key is that, like, as I tell coaches, you want to have that skeleton key that works with every person's mind, and you got to do them differently. You can't be soft and fluffy puppy dogs and ice cream with certain guys, but you have to be with others, right? And that's on us. I feel like as a teacher, I once had a guy tell me, I've been teaching history. He's still a friend of mine now, but he's like, I've been teaching for 20 years. If they can't learn my way, they're gonna have to fail the class. And that's the day I decided not to be a teacher. Because this guy was in charge of our social studies department. I was 22 years old, and he was boasting to me. And I just thought, I didn't believe in that at all. And I didn't know anything about anything in the world. I knew I was in love with this girl who I ended up marrying. I knew I loved basketball. I knew that could not be my ideology. Like, there's no way that can work. But I have to tell you 2 stories about Heat culture and Udonis and Jimmy Butler. I've been training pro since 1999. Only one player ever has kicked someone out of my gym for being late. They pay me. I don't. If they want to be late when they pay me, I'll say you're stupid for being late. But I don't kick them out. Udonis kicked someone out. We practice early in the morning, and someone walked in late. He's like, "Oh no!" He's like, "You don't disrespect Coach Thorpe that way. Get out!" And he kicked him out of the gym. Brian,
they got no refund.
And no one said a fucking word when he said that shit. The other thing is, I was with UD when they traded for Shaq, and I was fired up because Lamar Odom was part of the deal. And I said, "You're honest, you're going to start." He's like, no. He's like, "I'm done." Like, what do you mean you're done? He was in his second year. He said, "Coach Thorpe, I got in a fight with him this year on the court." Like, what are you talking about? I watched every one of your games. He said, "Man, he was bitching and moaning about all these foul calls." He's like, "I finally had enough." He's like, "I had enough." I said, "Shut the fuck up, Shaq. You're the biggest motherfucker on the court." And I said, "What happened?" He's like, "Nothing." I'm like, "That's not a fight." I said, "He respects you. He doesn't want to mess with you. You're like a pit bull. You may want to come up to his hips, but he doesn't want to fight you. Just like you want to mess with a pit bull. They're small." And of course, he's never left the Heat ever since because they love those guys. And this is where GMs have to come in. You have to know your personality and what fits. Tyler Hero, he looks like he could be playing golf. I get that. But that dude's a beast. There is nothing soft about the way that dude plays. Duncan Robinson to go Division III to Michigan to where he's been through the G League last year. He is, just because he's softer looking, not full of muscles, there's nothing soft about those guys. Dragic, too. Dragic is a crafty game, but that dude's an animal, man. Jarod, you said it perfectly. On this group, it's a perfect fit. The only thing that I think is interesting beyond it is Spoelstra is not some kind of just asshole. I don't think that at all. I think he's a nuanced thinker. He's the one that recognized Henry's point about 3,000 minutes not winning a championship. This dude loves analytics. They have an analytics department there. He's always espoused it. He's an innovative thinker. It's the perfect guy. Pat Riley's that way. Let's face it. Pat Riley's stubborn. Right. Let's elbow you in the face as much as possible and get away with it. I think Spoelstra is more nuanced than that. And
Eric had to go to Pat Riley and be like, "Hey, 3-pointers seem like they might help you win. We're going to shoot some in the finals and start Shane Battier." And Pat's like, "Good luck, bro." Like, I don't know what the hell you're smoking, but good luck with that.
Conspiracy theory. So maybe Spo has convinced Pat that all the analytics stuff makes sense. He's like, "But you keep doing the whole we're tough guy routine as the face. But meanwhile, the secret sauce is we're not doing 3,000 minutes, we're doing threes, all that other stuff." Maybe that's the trick.
They have another secret sauce too, though, and that is they are the only franchise. And I've coached players maybe that's played for 27 of the 30 teams. I think there's 3 teams for some reason. I've never had a player that I've helped, but I got a lot of guys in Miami. They take conditioning and body fat seriously.
They do.
You're checked weekly, at least they were for a long time. You're on the treadmill all the time. They are maniacal about that aspect of your development. And I know Henry and I've talked a lot about this. That counts. And so they're load managing while also making sure you're always in shape. That matters. These guys, and the players buy into that. They really buy into we're the hardest working team in the league. They mean off the court, not just on the court. We're working at that. That goes to their brand.
But that's okay. So I'll take it. Am I clear?
Slow down. Am I clear?
If I can remember how to talk, what I would say is body fat is kind of a 1975 measure of fitness.
Of course.
Like Marcus Elliott would fucking laugh at this approach. This is so old school. Treadmills in the middle of the season are probably not
treadmills,
injuries,
bikes,
right?
It's bikes. Yeah, it's bikes. But yeah, I understand your point.
Yeah, whatever. I think if so, to me, the innovative team would say, let's be open-minded about what protocols in season reduce injuries and increase performance. And I think they'd find mind-blowingly different things that they have yet to do, right? And this is where okay, they've used some analytics and shot some threes and reduced some minutes, right? But that doesn't mean that they are innovative. They've just not been resistant to all innovation. They've allowed a little bit, right? They have some European players. Yay, Goran Dragic! Oh, that doesn't mean that they have a mindset of let's lead with new ideas. They don't. They haven't led with anything, right? A 2-3 zone is from 1940, right? These things are they have done some things, and I don't think Eric is in any way an uncreative coach, but I think they're distinguished as a team by being we started with goddamn body fat whenever Pat Riley started coaching, and we're still doing goddamn body fat. And it's that's not innovation. That's just
Spo
fucking army.
I think Spo is more innovative than the franchise is.
Yeah, so he's a 7 out of 100, and Pat's a 1.
Right. As an example, there isn't another coach that I can think of that's running the kind of screens for shots for undrafted players that started Division III like Miami's doing for Duncan Robinson. And by the way, and Jeff Van Gundy said this yesterday, they do that to start every game typically.
Yeah.
They normally start the game, let's get off our undrafted two-way guy from a year ago, not our lottery picking Tyler Hero comes off the bench a lot, whatever. It's that dude, right? And for a while they were starting him and Kendrick Nunn, another undrafted player. And now he doesn't play very much, which I give Spo credit for too. As Tyler Hero started playing better, he's just better than Nunn. Nunn is still a valuable, energy guy, and we could play somewhere else next year. So yeah, Spo is Pat Riley's more old school. It does go to their identity though. They really believe that they're lean, hard, in shape guys. They play with, I tell you what, I thought they played terribly yesterday in the first half in terms of lacking force. It looked like it was a seeding game. Like I did not feel that fight in the first half yesterday. In the second half, I only felt it from one team. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, I said I think Spo's going to throw some chairs at halftime. And then I said, and then in the last 2 minutes when Miami started scoring and Boston didn't, I said, so is Brad Stevens. Turns out it was the entire Celtics team after the game. Like, that was a bullshit effort, guys. What the fuck is going on? That's why Marcus Smart said what he said, Jarod.
Calling that bullshit.
That's what he meant. Like, are you fucking kidding me, guys? Wake the hell up. We're in the finals here. What are we doing? They didn't like to care. They act like they didn't care. 20 turnovers and no force on defense. You got no shot. You can't win.
Speaking of innovation, Henry, do you know which teams in the NBA implement pool work into their, like, actually swimming pool into their physical? Because I'm thinking that could be a market inefficiency. As someone who like trained Olympic swimmers and all that, like, there's a lot of benefits to being in the pool.
They do. There is some of that, and they have the anti-gravity treadmills in the water. The Spurs are the first team to use that I was aware of, but a lot of teams have that now.
So to your question, Jarod, like when Sam Hinkie ran the Sixers, he wouldn't say anything to anyone that was interesting whatsoever. Like, this was like his policy. And he's really good at it. But what he would say again and again was like, when we have our practice facility, now that's something that would be interesting that we would want to talk about, right? So on and on with this Camden practice facility. It was years in the making, and they finally opened it. And like, it ended up being not that interesting, to be honest. But the one big thing was that the workout areas, the off court, like were 50% wet, 50% dry. So like, they had a lot of square footage, and they thought this was a big deal. And then they're just, it's closed. You can't see it. It's secret. It doesn't matter. Like, so I'm like, similarly, I can tell you that in, the Warriors' new arena has an attached practice facility, which is beautiful. And they let us walk through. They're like, you're never going to come in here again. But it has it doesn't have a big aquatic area, but it does have one. It has like a players only kind of private area where you're in this it's not zero gravity, whatever, reduced gravity. So I think it happens. And they also, everybody has those treadmills, that they're full of air. It's ridiculous. Like, you zip it up around your midsection and you run on a lighter weight. That thing's hilarious, but actually kind of effective, I think. Yeah.
I like that idea, 50% wet, 50% dry, because there are benefits, right, in terms of like the therapeutic nature, and you can get your aerobic workout in, and it's not as stressful on the joints, right? Which is, when you're a basketball player, kind of try to limit, especially as you get older, the wear and tear on those joints, because that's bone on bone, not good.
Do you want to go a little deeper? I know that you've probably, as a swim coach, thought a crap ton about what this is doing in our bodies that's beneficial. Obviously you made the point about joints, but there's more, right?
It's, it's such an interesting sport and a way to train, right? Like, just because of the nature, it literally works every muscle in your body. Like, if you are an Olympic swimmer, or like even a college swimmer, like even D3, like, every muscle in your body is working out during a swim workout. We always say, okay, you put like let's say a football player or a basketball player who can swim. and you put them into a swimming workout, like warm up, they're gassed after warm up, and that's like 500 yards, right? Because of just the nature. You're using parts of your body. You're like, what? I don't have to use these different things. This is incredible, and it gives you this sort of total nimbleness to your body. It stresses different areas aerobically, anaerobically. And we found that when we took our swimmers out of that and they went into their other sports, they could often, because of the way swimming is year round, they could skip the pre part of like most of their dry land sports because they've had swimming, and conditioning wise, they're fine. It's just about getting their skills on track for basketball or field hockey or whatever, because they haven't done it. But the aerobic part of that, we're good. We just got to get our skills on point.
You know what you're making me think about is when I went to the Silicon Valley Sports Analytics Conference, I think it was called, where I met Christy Oshwinden and Dana Smith. One of the interesting things I learned there was in-season training, right? So if you're in a sport like basketball, where you end up doing a lot of like, straight line explosive work, right? So you end up, jumping and running. Obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but you don't want to tax those muscle sets in season, right? So you do rotational stuff. There's actually even a little theory that Michael Jordan's golfing was a really good way to use some. Oh my God, it's me now.
We mentioned golf on this show. This is fantastic.
I'm sorry, everybody. I may have accidentally said the word golfing. What's happening?
Look at that, Randy. True Golf. That's the name of the show.
Snuck up on me. I didn't know it was coming.
Stay tuned, Randy. Stay tuned.
Oh, this is terrible.
The U.S. Open's going on right now. I love
right now. Winged foot.
No, we're not talking about the U.S. Open.
No, I do have something to talk about. I have two things I want to bring up to get us off this topic that I really wish we were talking about, because I love golf. First of all, for anyone listening, please follow TrueHoop on Instagram.
Oh.
Henry can speak to how that's being handled, but the person that's doing it is doing an amazing job. I don't follow that many things on Instagram, but True is my favorite thing to follow, and I know everything's being posted. I read everything that's come up there.
That's my daughter Molly. She does a great job.
Yeah. So please follow it. Tell your friends to follow it. It's really fantastic. And then I want to hear from Jarod and Henry. I published my opinion on the Denver LA series. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. I probably have influenced Henry too much now, but I'm interested.
Oh, way too much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Coach, you influenced me too much too. Look, I mean, you even before I knew you were influencing my basketball thoughts. I'm like, remember, I think the first time I met Coach, I said, Coach, I tried to do what you said, which is watch a basketball game and not watch the ball. It's really hard because my eyes keep wanting to go, wait, but it's over there. Look, that the size of the Lakers is a problem to me. Like, I just don't know. Again, we talked about Jokic not being a good rim protector. That is an issue. And there's still that LeBron James guy to think about, right? Again, what's your defense for that? Yeah, Murray can probably go off, and I imagine he will at least once, maybe twice. Look, I'm going to give Denver just because of the fact that they're on the whole nobody believes in us and they're playing with house money. They might just win 2 games just because, But I think overall, I don't think that they're going to have enough to beat the Lakers 4 times. That's a lot to ask for them. So I'll say Lakers in 6. And I know this, LeBron is going to respect them. He's already come out and said, it won't be any taking them lightly. No. They may lose game 1. Very well could happen just, because shit happens in basketball. But it's not going to be because they didn't take the Nuggets seriously.
David, I have a question for you. So in general, big men like Dwight Howard have been de-emphasized in the game because very often they're asked to go cover someone who shoots threes, right? Or taken away from the hoops, so their value's down, and it's a mystery. We saw it last series, right? Some of those bigs couldn't get on the court at all against the Rockets. This is where Jokic can be effective far from the hoop. He's not exactly one of these modern stretch 4s or whatever, but he could, can he, by playing effectively, far from the hoop, negate some of the Lakers' advantage?
He can on that end for sure. I think you're going to see a good amount of picking and popping because the Lakers want to keep their bigs near the rim, right? So The Lakers have excellent defensive team speed. This is, if I was running another piece, I did 3 this week. I'm not doing 4. So don't ask me for another one, Henry. But if I was.
You have till 5 o'clock.
I'm lazy. The Lakers team speed is outstanding. Rondo's fucking fast. Caruso's fucking fast. Davis, LeBron, KCP can fly. McGee is fast. Dwight Howard's not so fast. But he doesn't start for them, right? They've got a lot of speed. So when you pick and pop and leave your big back defensively, the rotations have to happen. And they're fast enough to do it. The problem is it's the other way around. It's still, how can Denver stop the Lakers from scoring enough? If Murray shoots great, Jokic shoots great, yeah, Denver can win some of those games. Not guaranteed. Houston at one point was 19 of 37 from 3 and lost the game. I even tweeted, no one's beating them when they're 19 from 37 from 3, and the Rockets rolled like 5 at that point. In my mind, I'm thinking, the Lakers should be down 15, 19 of 37 from 3. They were down 5 and won the game because Houston missed some shots. It's the other stuff that is going to be a problem. And Jokic is moving his feet better, but not to the level I think he needs to have that problem defensively. Someone wrote, it might have been Bilal, that the Lakers can't win in 5 because that means they'll be up 3-1. And we know what happens when you're down 3-1 if you're Denver. And I get that. But
the magic just stops.
Right. But this is what I'm going to ask. And Henry, I'm going to ask Henry because he's a Portland fan. Going into game 1, Charles Barkley picked Portland to win the series. Let's not forget that.
That didn't help at all. Yeah.
That didn't help at all. Right, of course. but that was the vibe of they got Nurkic back and Damian was the MVP of the bubble. And I think I wrote that in the piece. And does anyone remember Portland? It was a train wreck. They were pulverized. Now, it was so bad Damian went home. And I'm sure he had an injury, but he still went home before the series was even over. He was lounging with a glass of wine at home while his team was still playing in the bubble. They got trucked by the Lakers. And then when Houston won game 1, PJ Tucker and the Rockets, all the small ball, and Harden trucked by the Lakers. They won that series by 61 points the last 4 games. So even if Denver steals game 1, which I wouldn't predict, they could, but I wouldn't predict it to happen. The Lakers know they're coming, and I just don't think the Nuggets can solve it. But as I wrote, Jarod, if he's able, I didn't say muscle up to you on the phone, Henry. I said muck it up, right? Okay. But it's the same kind of thing. If Jokic can kind of get in the way of these rim attackers, and not foul, which I think is hard to do. Now the Lakers have to make a bunch of threes, which is much more of a questionable response, right? I don't know that they'll make a bunch of threes. They did. When they do, they definitely win. And normally what they do, Jarod, I was talking to Henry this morning about it, is you know how my Thorpe rule about winning one quarter by 10 or more, which is now 34-1-1 in the postseason, this postseason. The Lakers have that one monster quarter. Monster quarter is 10 or more winning, and because they have that big surge. They play great defense, best defensive team in the bubble. They beat you up inside, high percentage shots. When they get real hot for a quarter, they build that margin, and you just can't recover from it. And so I just think they're going to do that more often than the Nuggets will against them. Yeah.
So we're talking about, the Lakers are so good because they have 3 bigs. The Nuggets have Mason Plumlee. Is he just not as good as Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee?
He is. No, in fact, he is their best rim protector for sure. But it comes at such an expense to their offense.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because already it's not going to be so easy to score against the Lakers. And so now when you take Jokic out, it's just a huge hit for them. So you have to play Jokic. I mean, it's not like the Rockets didn't have to worry about not playing Tyson Chandler. They were better off without him. It's definitely Jokic.
Putting in Plumlee, and because he's backing up Jokic, and Davis picks up 2 quick fouls on him, right? He gets just because Davis is a matchup nightmare, and it's just. And again, as I said a couple weeks ago, if Davis plays like Anthony Davis, what are the Nuggets gonna do? That's. It's 30-16. Wow.
And they're not. I think in the Nuggets game this year, I read this. I don't pay much stock in plus minus for 2 games.
Yeah.
Okay. LeBron didn't play in one of the games. All right. That's to be clear. They played 4 games, but I don't care in 30 some odd minutes what someone's plus minus is. I think it's a mistake that people look at that because we have, until you watch the games, how many open threes did they miss? How many contested threes did the other team make? How many fouls were called that were questionable? It's just not enough numbers for me. The bottom line is the Lakers, what you said, Jarod, is exactly right. And that's their trump card. I hate that word, but that's their trump card, lowercase t. They can play McGee. They can play McGee and or Howard and go big and have been very good all year with that. And if it's not working out, yeah, we'll just play the world's best player that isn't a primary ball handler at the 5. Like, that's their plan C? Fantastic. That's why I just have a hard time seeing what Denver can do unless Jokic can really muck up their game at the rim, and then it'll be a great series.
So?
and Jamal Murray is up and down. He was so good in those last couple of games against the Clippers. But he wasn't before that when they were down 3-1. And I just think, and we've talked about this on our show too, the Clippers, they looked like Boston yesterday. In fact, I don't think they threw things in the locker room afterwards. Like, they didn't have enough caring to throw stuff. You probably should throw some stuff. The Lakers do. I think if the Lakers lose game 1, well, they won't throw stuff. They've been there. They lose a second game, there'll be some stuff thrown around. LeBron ain't
What item would you recommend?
Whiteboards.
Cheap and not glass. Wood. Whiteboards is good. Wood is good. Something that's not going to cut somebody, right?
You were talking about Miami and like the intangible and how I can't quantify with numbers what UD is. What also I can't quantify is how much LeBron knows this is one of, if not his last good chances to win a title, right? Just because of age and all that.
Yeah.
So how much of that, like whatever that 2x point, I don't know what the number is, contributes to, no, we're winning this goddamn series.
Well, I think we see it when the Bucks are like, let's strike.
Yeah.
And LeBron's like, oh, no. We're going to get back on that court right away. Chop, chop.
There's never a doubt that we were going to be playing. I don't think that really, in any one game, I think they're already committed as is. I think Jimmy Butler's point about talking about being locked in, because Jimmy has said that I am locked in, except for the whole big face coffee part. They're allowed to have a life outside of it. These guys, I mean, those veteran players, you don't think Anthony Davis, like he wants that ring. And everyone wants it in games, although sometimes they don't always play at the force they should. It's what are you doing the other times, right? That's what Udonis is talking about. Like, I'm always uncomfortable. Davis is suffering for his soup every day right now. And LeBron knows how to do that. I mean, and don't forget this, the last thing I'll say on, I know we have to go. When people talk about Jordan knowing how to win games, so does LeBron. Many, 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 many times. Boston has been here. We forget 2 years ago they were in this when they were babies. But it didn't carry over. They're not playing like they know how to win this series. LeBron knows how to win these things. So if Denver plays out of their minds, it's not like LeBron. Forget about Frank Vogel. LeBron's probably smarter, actually, as a coach. LeBron just has seen more on the court. No one's seen more than him ever, really, in the history of the game. In terms of number of wins, he has the most, right, in the postseason. He will continue to find tweaks, and he's communicating it. This is the Lakers' championship to lose. They may not win it, but it won't be because they aren't aware of the circumstance they're in. They know. Yeah.
And the Bigs are rested. The Nuggets.
And poor Michael Porter Jr. going to get roasted out.
Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
They're
coming for Jokic, though. Just remember, they ain't coming for MPJ. They're coming for Jokic. Just keep that in your mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll watch tonight. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys next week.